The next talk we have lined up is Gwendol Fave from ENS, who's going to be talking about the anion collision experiment. So please go ahead.
Okay, thanks a lot. First of all, thanks a lot for organizing this mini conference. It's a great pleasure to speak here and having the possibility to discuss this experiment with this panel of experts of the field. So I will describe the experiment we performed at ENS, and which basically uses the geometry of a collider in a two-dimensional electron gas in order to probe fractional statistics in these geometries. So this is basically the implementation of the experiment that were proposed by Rosno, Levkisky, and Alperin a few years ago. And the idea of these experiments is basically that you have this, so this is a representation of the two-dimensional electron gas. You inject some current from this top contact and this bottom contact, and you use this quantum point contact to, with a small probability, scatter some charge from the top here towards this quantum point contact and from the bottom towards this quantum point contact. And these experiments are realized both in the integer quantum Hall regime, where these would emit electrons that collide on the splitter, and in the fractional quantum Hall regime at physics factor 1/3, when this probability is small, fractional quasi-particles, anyons, will be emitted and colliding here. And by measuring the cross-correlation between the output current, we can probe the tendency of particles either to anti-bunch, to exclude each other and exit in different outputs of the splitter. So this would be the fermionic behavior expected for electrons, or on the contrary, to bunch and form packets of charge at the output, which is expected in the case of anyons. So these experiments are performed at ENS. So I would like to insist on the role of Hugo Bartolomei, the PhD student, and Manohar Kumar, the postdoc, who realized the experiments. And we need very good samples to perform these experiments. And we have this very fruitful collaboration with the C2N in Palaiseau for growing and fabricating the sample. So first of all, here is a trace of the multiple integer and fractional quantum Hall effect that you can observe in a Hall bar geometry here with the plateaus for the Hall resistance or the suppression of the longitudinal resistance. And here at low field, you would have the integer quantum Hall effect, you expect electrons. And for all these fractional quantum Hall states, you have anyons obeying different kinds of statistics. And we'll be focusing here on the Laughlin states, 1/3, 1/5, and more specifically on the state 1/3, where basically both the charge and the statistics of these particles are fully defined by the filling factor. Basically at 1/3, the fractional charge is E/3, and the exchange phase is π/3 for these particles. So these exchange properties are also associated, so as I discussed before, to exclusion principle for fermions, or on the contrary, bunching behavior for bosons. So it means that anyons are expected to obey intermediate levels of exclusion or bunching. And here for the phase π/3, it puts anyons closer to the boson side, so expecting more of a bunching behavior. So these anyons were first introduced as being present in the bulk of the system. However, in transport experiments, and more specifically in noise experiments, what we do is probe the system through the edges, and we usually use quantum point contacts to bring the two edges of the sample close together, so that there would be a small probability, a small backscattering probability for charge to be transmitted from the top part to the bottom part. And when this probability is small, we are in the weak backscattering limit, and in that case, the transfer of charge occurs through the random tunneling of anyons that, for example, for filling factor 1/3, would have a fractional charge E/3 and an exchange phase π/3. So the first thing that was realized, and as presented before by Steve in the previous talk, is that this random transfer of fractional quasi-particles should allow to directly measure the fractional charge by measuring the fluctuation of the transmitted current. And this was performed almost simultaneously at the Weizmann and in CA Saclay. in 1997. And the realization of the experiment is the following. So you would inject some DC current here flowing along the edges, and you would bring the two edge channels close to each other using a quantum point contact, allowing some small transmission for charge that would be randomly transmitted from this edge to the other side. So here, if the transmission is small, you have a Poissonian process for emission of fractional quasi-particles, meaning that the fluctuation of the number of particles at the output should be proportional to the average number of transmitted particles. It means for the noise, for the current noise, that the current noise should be proportional to the incoming current, to the transmission probability, but also to the charge, allowing you to directly measure the charge carried by these quasi-particles. So these experiments were analyzed, and in particular, deviations to the Poissonian limit, using this non-interacting formula, where you add this 1 minus t factor, and you have here this factor that tells about the crossover between thermal fluctuation and the shot noise. And it works very nicely, measuring the slope of this dependence of the noise with the current. It agrees very nicely with the charge E over 3 for a filling factor 1/3. So this gives a very strong indication that these anyons existed, because the theory consistently predicts the fractional charge to be E over 3 and the exchange phase to be pi over 3. But yet, it was not directly a measurement of a quantity that is directly sensitive to this exchange phase phi. So for this type of abelian anyons, basically two directions were proposed to reveal these properties. The first one was to measure this phase in a Fabry-Perot or Mark-Sender interferometer, and that would be the topic of the next talk by James Nakamura. Here I will focus on the noise measurement, but using more complex geometries than this one, where a single QPC was present, but noise measurement with several QPCs were shown to carry information on the fractional statistics of anyons. And it was first proposed by Ignace Safi, Thierry Martin and co-workers, Smitha later on in the early 2000 years. Many different setups were proposed, and we implemented the setup proposed by Rosenau and collaborator, which has the geometry of a collider. And I will show you how indeed, one can convince himself using classical argument that the geometry of a collider does give information about the tendency of particles to bunch together, or on the contrary, to exclude each other. So one can consider this experiment here, where you have a beam splitter with a backscattering probability T, and two particles at the two inputs of this splitter. And one looks at the probability to have two particles bunching together into the same output of this beam splitter. So this would occur classically with a probability T times 1 minus T. And you can, by hand, add some exclusion statistics by adding this factor 1 minus P, where the positive P will reflect exclusion statistics, meaning that you reduce the possibility to have two particles in the same output. So this is anti-bunching. And in particular, for electrons, fermions, this P would equal 1. Basically, Pauli exclusion principle forbids you to have two particles in the same output. On the contrary, this is a quasi-probability, because a negative value of P would describe bunching, favorable tendency to form packets of charge in the same output. On the contrary, this process where two particles exit in two different outputs describes the opposite process of anti-bunching, where particles want to exclude each other. So now, when you measure cross-correlations between the outputs, what will happen is that in this case, you have a positive excess of charge in this output compared to the average charge. On the contrary, here you have zero charge, so you have a negative excess of charge, so you have less charge than on average. It means that the cross-correlation of the current are negative when you have such bunching behavior. On the contrary, in this case, when both particles go to exit in different outputs, here you have positive fluctuation of charge and positive fluctuation of charge, meaning that anti-bunching should show up as positive cross-correlation. So it means that this cross-correlation can indeed probe in these geometries the tendency of particles to form packets of charge, or on the contrary, to exclude each other. So you can even go further using this very classical model by assuming, as we have in our experiment, that particles are emitted in input 1 and input 2 with some probability T1, and assuming here that the probability T1 equals the probability T2. So both particles, well, both inputs have the same probability to be filled with a particle. So it means that the current difference between the two inputs vanishes in this configuration, but still you have a total input current I+, which is the sum of these two input currents, that is non-zero. In that case, using this classical model, you can directly relate this cross-correlation to the properties of the beam splitter, this T1 minus T factor, to the charge of the carriers, to the total input current, but also to these exclusion probabilities, 1 minus P here. And you can define a sort of a Fano factor, which is the cross-correlation normalized with the current, the T1 minus T, and the charge of the quasi-particles. And this is directly proportional to these exclusion probabilities, 1 minus P. So the conclusion is that for fermions where P equals 1, so you have Pauli exclusion principle, this results in the strong statement that the cross-correlation vanish, the Fano factor should equal 0. So this sort of seems to contradict what I said before, that when you had two particles in the input, this would result for anti-bunching to positive cross-correlation. So this is true when you have the two inputs that are filled, but sometimes only one particle is present in the input, and this results in negative cross-correlation. So for fermions, these two processes cancel each other, and you expect to have 0 cross-correlation. On the contrary, anyons obey different exclusion statistics, meaning that you expect for anyons that you should observe negative cross-correlation. Now, to extract the exact value of P that you should expect for anyons, you need to go beyond this simple classical calculation and perform a full quantum calculation, which is precisely what Rosno and collaborators did in their paper. So we'll not go into the details of the theory, maybe just give the main ingredients. So again, we assume that these two inputs are symmetrically biased. So we apply the same voltage bias here and here, emitting the same current here towards these two input quantum point contact. These are tuned with the same transmission probabilities, such that again, the current difference vanishes, and I minus equals 0, and you have only a total input current that is non-zero. And this description is based on the chiral Lichinger liquid, where the propagation of charge along the H channel is described by bosonic fields. And the statistical, the exchange statistics of the quasi-particles are encoded in the commutation relation of this bosonic field. So assuming here that you have a Poissonian, random Poissonian emission of quasi-particles at this input, they were able to compute here the cross-correlation and this Fano factor that is directly related to these two parameters. So this is the quasi-particle charge that is generated at this quantum point contact, this factor lambda, and delta describes the exchange statistics of the particle. And assuming here in for filling factor 1/3 that these parameters equal 1/3, one gets the result that the Fano factor is negative as expected, but with strong negative cross-correlation that reflects a tendency of particles to form packets at the output, a behavior that is completely different from the fermionic behavior. So this is precisely what we wanted to check in our experiment. But before showing the results of the collision experiment, there are a few check experiments that we need to do to see that each of these beam splitters, this quantum point counter, behaves the way we expect it to behave. So first of all, we characterize what are the incompressible phases that we can observe in our system as a function of magnetic field. So integer quantum Hall effect at low field and fractional quantum Hall effect at higher field. In order to do that, we basically measure in our system the backscattering probability for propagation along the Z channel. So this is what's plotted here. And you can see that this backscattering probability is strongly suppressed when you reach integer or fractional quantum Hall effect. And in particular, we see very well developed integer quantum Hall effect, but also the 1/3 case shows a very nice complete suppression of backscattering, showing that we have a robust 1/3 state in our system. So we will focus, as I said before, on integer fraction u equals 3 and u equals 2 to probe fermionic behavior, and u equals 1/3 to probe anionic behavior. So we will use this input quantum point contact as a way to randomly generate particles towards the central quantum point contact. So here is the operation, the conductance through this quantum point contact as a function of the voltage that we apply on these split gates here. You can see for nu equals 3 that we observe as expected 3 steps for the conductance. We observe 2 steps for nu equals 2 and only 1 step for nu equals 1/3. What you can see, and which is very nice, is that the full line represents the first QPC here, and the dotted line represents the second QPC here. And you can see that we have observed a very symmetric behavior on both QPCs, showing that they really behave the same way in our experiments, which is important because we will want to tune it in a very symmetric way in the collision experiment. So now, speaking about the collision experiment, we will implement it here on this first step of the conductance for nu equals 3 and nu equals 2. And here, in the full range of values of the conductance for nu equals 1/3, this regime being more the weak backscattering regime, where emission of fractional quasi-particles is expected, and this regime being more the strong backscattering regime, where these input quantum point contacts should emit electrons. So before, again, going to the measurement of the collision, we characterize the charge that is generated by these input quantum point contacts. So we will perform noise measurements, and the noise measurements are performed by using cold cryogenic amplifiers connected to this output here and this output here, so output labeled 3 and 4 in our setup. So in order to probe the noise that is generated by this quantum point contact, we fully close this central quantum point contact and measure the autocorrelation noise at this output 4 generated by the partitioning of this current on this quantum point contact here. So this is the measured noise as a function of the incoming current here, normalized by the T1 minus T factor. So first, in the integer case, you see that we observe this rather linear behavior with the input current, with a slope that is compatible, as expected, with the integer charge Q equals E. On the contrary, if we go to the filling factor 1/3, so these are the blue dots here for different transmissions that are plotted here in the weak backscattering regime, so backscattering probability that varies between 0.2 and 0.05. Here, you can see that we still observe something that is almost linear, but with a charge that is now very close and that agrees very nicely with the charge E/3 that is expected in the fractional case. We can also do an experiment in the fractional quantum Hall effect, but starting with a very strong backscattering probability that is very close to 0.8. So in that case, when you are not in the weak backscattering regime, but in the strong backscattering regime, what is expected is that electrons should be randomly emitted, should be scattered by this input quantum point contact. But you can see that here, this plots the differential transmission as a function of the current. You observe that it is nonlinear, which is expected for this Luttinger liquid. And this nonlinearity brings you from the strong backscattering regime, where electrons should be emitted at low current, towards smaller values of the backscattering probabilities, basically restoring the weak backscattering regime for larger currents, meaning that we have a way to tune the system from electron emission here towards anion emission for larger current. And indeed, this is what we observe. For small current, the slope agrees well with Q equals E, is the emission of electrons, whereas starting from this point, the additional current consists of anions with a slope that is very close to the slope E over 3 expected for anions. So in that case, the strong backscattering regime, we have a transition from electron emission by the quantum point contact towards anion emission for larger values of the current. So we can probe as well the second quantum point contact. Now we close this, we close again the central quantum point contact, but measure the noise in output 3. And as you can see, it's very, very similar to what we observed for the first quantum point contact. So we have a nice symmetric behavior between these two input quantum point contacts. So finally, we can check the central quantum point contact here. So now we inject a current here. We set this input quantum point contact to be fully open. And we partition this input current by this central quantum point contact. And now in this configuration, we can measure simultaneously the autocorrelation in output 4, the autocorrelation in output 3, but also the cross-correlation between the currents in output 3 and 4. So importantly, in this configuration, from the current conservation, the fact that the sum of the current I3 plus I4 equals the input current I0, we have this relation between the autocorrelation in output 3, the autocorrelation in output 4, and the cross-correlation between the two output currents that should equal the autocorrelation of the incoming current. However, this incoming current is noiseless, meaning that this is 0. So in this configuration, you have this simple relation between cross-correlation and autocorrelation, which should agree up to a minus sign. So in that case, cross-correlation and autocorrelation carry the same information up to this minus sign. So this is indeed what we observe. Again, the red points are for filling factor mu equal 2 and 3. So red is 2, orange is filling factor 3. Here we have the autocorrelation that give a positive value that agrees nicely with charge Q equals E. Here we have the cross-correlation, which gives the same information with a minus sign, and agree again with charge Q equals E. The blue points are for the fractional filling, where you observe the same thing, but now for filling factor, for charge that is transmitted, that is E over 3, as expected. Okay, so these are basically the experiments needed to check that each of these quantum point contacts scatter the right type of charges. And now we can really bring all these tools together and go towards the collision experiment. So the collision experiments, again, now we will be emitting some current from these two input contacts, partitioning it, emitting randomly particles here towards the central quantum point contact, and measure the cross-correlation between the two outputs here. So we will tune the parameters as discussed before. So basically having the same incoming current I1 equals I2, such that the current difference vanishes. And let me remind you the results of the prediction. So for fermions obeying Pauli exclusion principle, one should observe zero cross-correlation, so P equals 0. On the contrary, for anions, one should observe a strong negative cross-correlation with a final factor -2, traducing the fact that you have formation of packets of charge at the output. Okay, so we will start now with the integer case. So here we choose filling factor nu equals 2 and fully close these input quantum point contacts. So basically, this is the very, very strong backscattering regime, where here the probability to be backscattered, that is plotted here, is very close to 1. And it slightly deviates from 1 when 1 increases the input current. So what we observe for the autocorrelation, which are the empty dots here, they are almost equal to 0, but increase slightly. And this is due to the fact that here, the backscattering probability does not exactly equals 1, it slightly deviates from 1. So there is a bit of noise that is generated by this input quantum point contact. And this bit of noise, you can see it in the autocorrelation noise at the output. However, if you look at the cross correlations, these are the empty dots, they are perfectly matching 0. And this is the reflection of the Pauli exclusion principle, the fact that particles tend to exclude each other, which is revealed by this value of 0 cross correlation. So let me mention here that now cross correlation and autocorrelation are not equal to each other up to a minus sign. This is precisely because the incoming currents here are not noiseless, but now we are generating some noise here, such that auto and cross correlation do not carry the same information related to a minus sign in this experiment. Okay, so this is for backscattering probability that is very close to 1. So now we can go to a backscattering probability that is very close to 0.5. So we have now a lot of noise, a lot of partitioning that is generated by these two input quantum contacts. And as you can see, now the autocorrelations are clearly showing non-zero value. So this reflects again the noise that is generated here at this quantum contacts. However, the cross correlation shows slightly positive behavior and then something flat with a slope that is very close to 0, as expected again for fermions for electrons. We can again, so before that, there is a nice check that we can make. Again, using current conservation between the outputs and the inputs, we can relate the sum of autocorrelation plus cross correlation at the output to the sum of the noise that is present at the input. And here, this noise at the input is non-zero because we are partitioning the incoming current here and here, generating some noise from the input currents I1 and I2. So here, by summing all this contribution, we can remeasure the noise that is generated by QPC1 and QPC2, and this noise should agree again with the scattering of electrons with a charge Q. So we can check using the same data that indeed electrons are colliding on the splitter, and this is nicely what we observe. This agrees very well again with the charge Q equals E of electrons. Now we can go to smaller values of the backscattering probabilities, and we always observe the same kind of behavior, slightly positive cross correlation that flattens to a plateau with zero slope. So this zero slope is expected for fermions, and a charge that agrees with Q equals E. Even smaller values, a bit of larger cross correlation here, but still that flattens to a plateau of zero slope as expected for fermions. So this is for filling factor nu equals 2. We can basically do the same for filling factor nu equals 3 for several values of the backscattering probabilities. And we always observe for the cross correlation the same type of behavior. Basically, they are very close to 0 with a tendency to have slightly positive cross correlation that would flatten towards something with 0 slope. And again, we can consistently check the charge of the quasi-particles, which shows some fluctuations here, deviations, but qualitatively agrees with the Q equals E charge. So now we can move to the fractional case at filling factor 1/3, and starting with the weak backscattering regime. So you tune this transmission of these two input quantum contacts to a value that is very small. So here 0.05, deep in the weak backscattering regime, or in the Poissonian regime for emission of fractional quasi-particles, where you expect to have the strong anion behavior. And indeed, what we observe in the collision is completely different. So here, these are the cross correlations that are strongly negative here, and that are very close to the expected behavior here. This dotted line is the -2 Fano factor that is expected for anions at filling factor 1/3. So here, the exact slope that we measure is -1.9, that is very close to the expected -2. Again, by using the measurement of the autocorrelation here and summing everything, we can check the charge of the quasi-particles that are colliding on the splitter. And here you see that it agrees with the charge E/3, confirming that we observe this behavior when the charge of the quasi-particles is indeed consistent with fractional statistics. So now we slightly increase the backscattering probability here. And you can see that we have qualitatively the same behavior So basically, we start to see a plateau of zero cross correlation, but then negative cross correlation with a slope that is close to -2. And again, the charge is also consistent with E/3. We reduce again, we increase again the backscattering probabilities. And again, we observe this strong negative cross correlation with a slope that is very close to -2. So basically, if you look carefully at the slope, you see that when you increase the backscattering probabilities, so you go a bit away from the Poissonian limit, what you observe is that the slope slightly decreases from -1.9 towards -1.55. We always observe strongly negative cross correlation. So there is another regime which is very interesting to observe now, which is the opposite regime, where you are, on the contrary, in the strong backscattering regime. So now you tune this input quantum point contacts, so these input quantum point contacts, to be almost pinch off, such as the backscattering probability is very close to 1. So in that case, the expectation is that when the backscattering probability is very close to 1, you expect that, on the contrary, electrons would be generated at the quantum point contact, which should restore the fermion behavior for the collision. And indeed, what you observe in that case is that you have a suppression of both the cross correlation and the autocorrelation when you go here for a backscattering probability that is very close to 1. So there is even a more interesting regime, which is not when the QMPC is completely pinched off, but rather in the intermediate behavior, where you start for small current in a regime that is the strong backscattering regime, where the backscattering probabilities is very large, so close to 0.8. But due to the nonlinear behavior that we observe, that is characteristic of the chiral Luttinger liquid behavior, when you increase the incoming current, the backscattering probabilities will decrease from 0.8 towards 0.2, basically restoring the weak backscattering regime when you increase the incoming current. So indeed, what we observe is that for small incoming current, we observe slightly positive cross correlation, which were more the signature of what we observed at filling factor μ=3 or μ=2 in the fermion, the electron regime. But for larger current, at some point, the system, the behavior switches back to the strongly negative cross correlation that are expected for anyons. And this you can understand, again, measuring simultaneously the charge that is scattered by this input quantum point contact. For small input current, you have a charge that agrees with Q=E, so electrons are generated by the input quantum point contact, and electrons are generated up to this point of the input current, so basically these 2 points. So here, from this point to this point, basically, the current generated by the input quantum point contact is a current of electrons, and we measure positive cross correlation. But starting from this point, the current now will consist not of electrons, but of ions. And you can see that starting from this point, the additional noise that we observe is linear with the excess current that is carried by ions, with a slope that is consistent with the slope for ions. Basically, here we observe a slope that is still negative, strongly negative, but with a value -1.2, which is which deviates from the value -2. So basically, when the backscattering probability increases, we observe that the slope goes from something very close to -2 and decreases here down to -1.2 in that case. But very interestingly, we can observe within the same experiment and in the fractional case, a behavior that is first consistent with electron emission and then consistent with anion emission with this negative cross correlation. Okay, so before I go to my conclusion, there is a final check of the theory that we can make, which is basically going away from this symmetric tuning where both voltage V1 was equal to V2 and T1 was equal to T2. So that meant that the current difference was 0, but we can go to asymmetric voltages now, V1 different than V2, to tune the asymmetry and the ratio I minus, the difference of current, divided by the sum of the current I plus. And the theory of Rosno and collaborators for anyons with an exchange phase pi over C precisely predicts how the Fano factor should evolve with this ratio. And we very nicely observe very nice agreement with their prediction, where the Fano factor goes from -2 towards something close to -3, where this ratio becomes very close to 1. So this gives a very strong confidence that indeed we are in the good condition and in the conditions of Rosno and collaborators for these collision experiments, and that indeed our observation show that we have anyons with a fractional phase pi over C. So this brings me to my conclusion, showing you basically these two graphs. So this is the noise, the partition noise generated by the input QPC, normalized by the charge and the transmission effects. And you can see that there are deviations, but all the points at integer filling and fractional filling basically scatter on the same curve, showing that by normalizing by the fractional charge, you can basically take all the effects of the noise generated by these input quantum point contacts. This is completely different when you look at the cross correlation in the collision experiment. So again, this is normalized by the fractional charge, but you can see a very strong different behavior where with a Fano factor close to 0 for fermions, which is characteristic of the fermion behavior. On the contrary, these strong negative values with a Fano factor close to -2 for the anion case. So now the next goal would be to probe different filling factors that would obey different statistics. And of course, fractional states that have more complex edge structure would be interesting, such as 2/5 that was mentioned previously. Thanks a lot again for your attention and for listening to this talk.
Thank you very much. Okay, so there's a few questions. To ask questions, you could either raise your hand, and then when I'll call on you, you can unmute, and you can also type into the chat, and I'll just read it off. So one question from Shuo Mi is, what are the factors that influence the backscattering probability in the quantum point contact? Is it possible to precisely control the backscattering process in experiments? If yes, then how to control and tune it?
So basically, so we can see it on this, basically on this slide. So the backscattering probability, we tune it by using these gate voltages here. So the voltage we apply on QPC2 on these two split gates here. And indeed, it's possible to precisely tune it. So this is what we observe here. So basically, by measuring the conductance, we can choose the value of the backscattering probabilities. And nicely, it's very close for QPC1 and QPC2. So really, they behave the same way. Now, what happens is that this backscattering probability does depend on the current that you drive through the system through this nonlinear behavior. So this would make this backscattering probability depend on the value of the current you are sending. So these effects are not so strong in this weak backscattering regime, but that can be much stronger when you go in the strong backscattering regime. But yes, you can tune it rather precisely.
So another question is, can you please elaborate on the origin of the plateau in the cross correlation for the fractional case?
Okay. So basically, this that would be this plateau here. The fact that we observe something that is flat and then that shifts towards the negative values. So I do not have a clear answer. So there are two things that come to my mind. The first thing would be a thermal effect. So for very small values of the current, that corresponds to very small values of the voltage that we apply. So there is a bit of range here where basically the voltage would be comparable to thermal fluctuation, and we are basically still having a thermal state. And it's known that for a thermal state, the cross correlation should be 0. So first, there is a need to have a bias that is enough to go above the thermal threshold. Now, still, I think the value of the plateau is slightly larger than that. So it could be that when we increase the backscattering probabilities again, we have a bit here of a value that is reminiscent of an electron behavior before we switch to the anion behavior. But these are two possibilities, but that I do not have a clear answer for the reason for this plateau. Certainly, there is a contribution from thermal effect.
So Yuval Geffen had a question. Let me, Yuval, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. If I consider a Coulomb interaction, repulsive Coulomb interaction, then one might guess that they will act in a way of introducing anti-bunching or positive correlations. Now, your results indicate very close, very good correspondence with theory, meaning that the role of repulsive Coulomb interactions is negligible. Do you have any idea why they are negligible?
Not fully. So first, you can see that if we look at the fermion case, the electron case, we do observe a bit of positive cross-correlation, which tends to flatten. And this could be a signature of the effect you are mentioning. That is that the fact that we have even more exclusion than what statistics predicts, precisely because of Coulomb interaction effect. So that would mean that here we do see a bit of this effect, but they are still small and do not lead to a strong positive cross-correlation. Next, if we have that for electrons, I would expect that for anions, such Coulomb interaction effect would be less important, maybe just because the charge is smaller. So that would be a reason why, if we don't see strong effect for electrons, I would say we should be confident that it should not be so strong for anions as well.
Okay. So Rudro had a question also. Rudro Biswas. In the G versus VQPC plot, what is the estimated measurement error in G? And please comment on the apparent measured drift in the quantization of the conductance for the Laughlin state.
Okay, here. Yeah, okay. So, okay, good point. So here, basically, this looks very not well quantized plateaus. The reason is precisely what is mentioned in the question related to the noise. So this is not related to a lack of quantization of this plateau. This is really because we are measuring here and here the current that is transmitted. And here, this is not done. Here we have cryogenic amplifiers with very low noise. Here we are using room temperature amplifiers that are more noisy, such that this measurement is less accurate. And this was done rather fast, just to show the behavior with these steps, not in a way to reduce as much as we can this noise. But when we characterize, when we do the collision experiments, we integrate these values much longer to have a more accurate measurement of the transmission of the conductance or the transmission of this quantum point contact. So really, if you measure the quantization of these plateaus with these amplifiers, for example, the quantization is very robust. So this is really noise. As mentioned in the question, these fluctuations come from the noise of this trace that was taken rather fast. But as you can see, so basically, these traces are this is the same kind of measurement, but where we integrate the signal much longer. So here, this noise that was important on the previous trace, it almost vanishes here because we are measuring with a much longer integration time.
Another question from Junju is, could you comment whether the current dependence of the backscattering rates at 1/3 is an intrinsic property of the anion, or is it a sample-specific property?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of both. So we have tried so these non-linearities, as I mentioned during the talk, they are indeed expected from theory. And more specifically, in principle, you can relate these non-linearities precisely to this parameter delta. So this is something that we looked at, and I do have a few slides on that, I think. So in the strong backscattering regime, okay, that would be here, we basically observe that you can start from a pinch QPC, so backscattering probability is 1, and by increasing the bias, you would restore some you would decrease the backscattering probability here. So this is qualitatively what you expect. Then you can look at these exponents that are related to the statistical parameter. And in the strong backscattering regime, the weak tunneling limit, it agrees rather nicely with what you expect for 1/3. So in this regime, the power law is consistent with what you expect from theory, so within some deviations from trace to trace, but the agreement is rather nice. It's not the same in the weak backscattering regime. So again, qualitatively, we have such behaviors here, where basically, this is what is expected at the qualitative level. But you can see that when you go very close to, this is 0.05. Okay, so sorry. This plotted here is the forward scattering probability. So the back scattering probability is 1 minus this. So this 0.95 means the backscattering probability close to 0.05. That was the plot that I was showing with the smallest value of the backscattering probability. You see that here the nonlinearities seem to vanish. It's almost flat. And even the traces here from a larger value of the backscattering probability, they tend to collapse on this value. They do not go up to 1, which would be expected, but tend to go towards 0.95. So now if you try to look at the power law, it does not agree so nicely. So the exponent that you find is smaller than expected. But the more striking behavior is the fact that you should go towards 1 and you get stuck at 0.95. So now if you define the backscattering probability saying that you should go towards 0.95, it changes a lot the power law, and you could find something that agrees better. But okay, the main message is that in the strong backscattering regime, it works as expected. It does not so much in the weak backscattering regime.
Okay, so I think we should end the questions there. There are many more interesting questions, but we should save them for the panel.